Friends, today we celebrate the great feast day of Saint Lucy, the patroness of the blind and the bearer of light in darkness. You know, it's winter time and we're getting less and less sunlight, and as we head into the winter solstice, December 13th actually is the solstice day. In the old times, the 13th of December was always the winter solstice, where it's the darkest it can be. That was pushed off around Christmas, is actually the 21st, so they added a week to it. But that's why the church put St. Lucy on December 13th. She was a young virgin in the 4th century near Syracuse. And she was, her martyrdom was legendary. It had, just like many of the other virgin martyrs, just crazy martyrdom, just real powerful story of witness, of love, etc. And that lasted the 2,000 years, or in this case, 1,600 years. And the story lasts, centuries, if not, 1,600 years. Lucy lived during the reign of Diocletian, and during the persecution in the 400, late 300s, early 400s. Her tradition tells us that St. Lucy consecrated herself to God and her virginity to God, and she took her dowry and distributed it to the poor, which really angered her suitor. The guy, there was someone who wanted to take her hand in marriage, and she refused. So legend has it that when they arrested her, because he then turned her in as a Christian. So the story is that because she said no, then distributed her dowry to the poor, that enraged him. Then he turned her into the authorities as being a Christian, and they tortured her. She also, this is legend, I don't know if this is true, but when you see pictures of her, she's holding a plate with eyes, and apparently she plucked them out herself, which is kind of morbid. Self-harm. She's not the only saint that was connected to self-harm or things like that. There's a few others with, in the hagiography of some saints. But some say that they tortured her to death and plucked her eyes out, so we don't know which is true. One of them, maybe both are not true, who knows, but there's two versions of why that she had a plate with her eyes on, whether she plucked them out herself or they tortured her and plucked them out, etc. Either way, miraculously, her eyes came back. So that was also part of the story, is that God miraculously cured her eyes, and so she... and because her eyes were so beautiful too, so I think that was the witty joke, gross, morbid joke, but she either plucked them out and gave them to her suitor, saying that her eyes, are for Christ, and she doesn't need them anymore, so she gave them to him. Anyways, when the soldiers came and dragged her off, another part of the legend is that she was immovable. So they were taking her off to be... to prostitution. So they were going to enslave her as a sex slave, and that was common back then. So prostitution is where they dragged her to the house, brothel, and God made her immovable. When they tried to burn her, the flames wouldn't touch her. Eventually she was killed by the sword. So they attempted to martyr her multiple times, and that also is part of many other martyrs. And it took them multiple times, multiple ways to get them to die. So multiple ways and in multiple different, it took the third try on average to get some, to execute some of these martyrs. So their story is even more profound and carried over the centuries because of such, stories. So, but they tried to burn her, then, they killed her by the sword, and then she apparently continued to speak, encouraging the faithful, and even prophesying that the persecution would end soon, which it did. Soon Rome was going to fall, and Christianity was about to become legal. So right at the Diocletian period, that was at the tail end of the martyrdom and so forth, the persecutions. Her witness, as in the story of her in her hagiography, is well known. She consecrated herself to Christ, and that example really demands, as you can see in her life, everything. So if you're a consecrated virgin, consecrated person, you're really going all in with God in the way that you're being consecrated. Hermit, there's many types of consecrations. And so, yeah, her charity of the poor, her love and courage for torturers, that was all on display. She loved and forgave everyone and preached about, the end is near. I mean, it was a neat story, sad but powerful. And December 13th is a powerful day to have her feast day, the solstice, during the period of the year where it is the most dark. We have the least amount of winter solstice really is, you get several hours of sleep. Some places they get none for months, and then there's places that get sun for a long period of time. So anyways, Lucy, she also would bring, some of the things I read about her, that she would bring food and clothing to Christians hiding in the catacombs. So they were always searching for Christians. I mean, there was hiding places. It was just like Jewish times during the Holocaust, the German Nazi regime hunting, Jews. They swept through Europe and just took them all. And it was very similar. Those martyrs, those Jewish martyrs, there's 6 million at the Holocaust. So St. Lucy also during that time, was always hiding, and her suitor knew that she was Christian, and when she said no, that led to her being reported, and he turned her in. So wearing a wreath of candles on her head to light her way in the catacombs, that she used to do that too. So that's an interesting thing about her, because she wanted to carry more things. That's what I read. So she needed more provisions to help the poor and those who were hiding, those who were hungry. So she put a wreath of candles on her head so that she could use both of her hands. So quite clever. In our darkened times, we're going through the end times. We're always going through the end times post Jesus ascending, and faith gets pushed and stretched. We get ridiculed for being Christian. I've been ridiculed, spit on, sworn at. I've had the most nastiest things come out of people's mouths. And you just kind of love them and take it as an honor. Lucy does that, and she calls us to all be light bearers. She shows us that the purity of body and mind and heart and consecration to God is a powerful witness, and especially martyrdom of Christianity. And so with her, God really had a profound impact on the early church and the virgin martyrs. There's many, and their witness. So like her, we're called to bring Christ's light into the darkness. And so try to do that this winter during this Advent. And light is coming. This is going to be some dark days in the coming weeks, but next year is going to be here before you know it. And trust God and know that nothing can overcome those who belong to Him, those who are searching for Him, those who pray and love Him, those who are part of Him.